Hi and welcome to this OmniTalk. Today we are coming up with an update on the railway infrastructure sector, and this has been a very attractive growth vector and a sector to focus on in the last few years. And we thought that the sector, the companies under this particular sector has seen a lot of exciting things in terms of fundamental growth, new order book or order book growing at a very fast pace, earnings and revenues going at fast pace, and at the same time, market participant, Mr. Market, realizing the importance and the attractiveness of this particular segment, and repricing this whole segment in a really big way. So because we have been talking about railways for a long time, I thought that it's a good time to come in and talk about this sector. What is the current outlook? How we see the growth playing out? In the sense what we saw, let's say 3 years back, and now how we see, let's say, for the next decade or longer. And from an investment perspective, how the strategy has to now change or upgrade so that it's favorable, right? It remains
Right,
favorable on
right.
a long term basis. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the growth aspect. Like, is there any change per se, or we have talked about right from the national infrastructure pipeline, where the railway received a good large amount of focused allocation to PM Gati Shakti program and the national logistics plan. Everywhere, railway was at the centerpiece in
Absolutely.
terms of large allocation. So how is is there a continued focus, and how these companies are going to benefit?
See, railways have always been a very special part of the government work, right?
Right.
Earlier, railway budget itself used to be a separate budget. So that
Exactly.
itself shows that how much importance was given to railways. But interestingly, the railway budget has gone up significantly more after it
After it
has
has
been
come.
merged with the
Correct,
with the
correct.
regular budget,
Right.
right?
I think
And
in 10 years it has gone 10 times, like
even more, right?
more,
It
right?
was 16,000
Yeah, so
and
10
now
years,
it's
like
2 lakh
2 lakh
60,000
60,000,
crores.
right? Right.
So that's way more
Way
than
more
10
than that.
times,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's really, really fast
Fast growth.
growing part of the whole budget. One of
Absolutely.
the fastest, I would say,
Right.
right? And rightly so, because as you just mentioned, it's at the centerpiece of everything.
Right.
And so there is this statistics that in India, 14% of logistics, I mean, 14% of logistics is 14% of the GDP,
Correct.
right? While for a developed country, it's 7 to 8%.
Right.
And so the target should be to move from 14% to 7 to 8%. And that is where the National Rail Plan of 2030,
Right.
where the railway is targeting that its current share of freight is 27%.
Hmm.
In 2020, approximately, they
Yeah, now
had
it
that
would have come to 29, 30%, closer to that,
30%.
right?
But their target is to take it to 45%
45%.
by
Right.
end of 2030,
2030.
right?
Absolutely.
So that's a huge shift.
Hmm.
And that was in somewhere around 2020
Yeah.
or so.
Right.
That was the plan. So that was already quite a, you could say, forward looking plan.
Right.
And now with the logistics mission
Right.
or the Gati Shakti program, it completely gels well with that,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
And the dedicated freight corridors are already there,
Yes, I
right?
think dedicated freight corridor is going to be a very instrumental or key piece
Hmm,
in taking up the logistic shares, for in favor of railways,
absolutely.
because it connects key, let's say, industrial
Hubs. Hmm,
points and hubs and ports, from
right.
that perspective. And we are at a very advanced stage in terms of completion. I think the
Completions.
western dedicated freight corridor is expected to come around, let's say, in a year's time completely.
Nearly
Obviously it's
90%
90%
plus,
is
right?
commissioned, right,
Hmm.
already. So once it comes around, I think a lot of more activity, more logistics, freight shifting to railways, what we are going to expect. And the modal share will shift,
Hmm.
rather, in a more aggressive way than being more closer to at around 2030. That's
Correct.
what my kind of
Faster. You're saying it'll
faster,
be
yeah,
faster
faster
than,
adoption of
yeah, yeah.
modal shift. So that is really at the heart of it, and I think the longer term plan for railways is to take the modal share of around 60% from 45 once they
Okay.
achieve 2030. The
Okay.
longer 2050 plan is somewhere around going up to 60%, because
60%.
that's what in the developed world we have seen,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
railways, because of the cost efficiency and stuff like that, right? So that boats like gives a long term growth aspect in terms of
Hmm.
the railway infrastructure play, the
Sure.
companies
Sure.
involved in this. But having said that, market has also identified this, and some of the pure play companies, as we have seen, have gone maybe beyond their intrinsic value or quite close to their
Hmm.
intrinsic
Hmm.
value.
So you're
As
basically left with only the discount rate, right?
Yes, yes.
So,
So, or let's say if you're investing, and if you really have or expecting a very high growth, then that is something you can. But then again, it get into that risky territory of overpaying if the company, or that very high growth doesn't come in the stipulated time that you are
right.
looking at, right? So the approach, I think, that we have to kind of look when we are approaching this sector from an investment viewpoint, that is something that maybe we can talk about a bit, right?
Right. So the approach, see, we've done this for the other growth factors as well, right?
Hmm,
We
hmm.
discussed in terms of defense, how you
Right.
had to now look at the expanded
Broader.
idea and new dimensions of defense.
Right.
In this case, again, you have to step back
Hmm,
and see that, finally, railways was a great and sweet opportunity.
hmm.
That is why it was attractive maybe 3 years back,
Right.
right? Because companies, pure plays, were trading at single digit P's, etc. Now they
Right.
are in the 40 to 80 P range, right?
Right.
So they're, as you mentioned, it's
Hmm,
like overvalued or fairly valued at best.
hmm.
And so we step back, and then what we've been discussing throughout this video is that it's at the centerpiece of the logistics,
Logic piece.
you
Right.
know so logistics strategy, it's at the centerpiece.
Right.
So here is where, if we step back and expand the vision
Hmm,
to include the gati shakti and other logistics related things, and recognize that railway is at the centerpiece of the multimodal transportation,
right.
right? So there'll be roads coming and
Hmm,
connecting to railways, there'll be airports connecting to railways, and there'll be ports connecting to railways, right?
right.
So all of this is connecting to railways. And so companies which are helping build that infrastructure,
Hmm,
companies which might even be supplying
hmm.
equipment which will help in multimodal logistics,
Right.
uh, companies which actually do logistics,
Right.
right? And so on. So
Right.
if you just visualize the whole ecosystem, now a number of other companies which are not labeled as railway companies necessarily,
Right.
but a lot of their revenues will depend on the, or will be driven by the
Right.
growth in the railways.
Railways. Right.
And so this is how you can again win,
Right.
when you create that universe
Right.
and then look for pockets which are
Right.
mispriced,
Right. Right.
right? And so currently we think there is some sweet spot, probably, if you
Hmm.
look hard enough, the appropriate companies,
Right.
some infrastructure companies,
Right.
right, which are building for railways, right,
Right.
in the modernization,
Hmm.
and maybe some logistics companies.
Sure.
So if you go there, I
Right.
think the sweet spot is still available there.
Sure.
Mr. Market has still not
Hmm.
recognized that, and Mr. Market has fully recognized pure play railways.
Right. Fantastic. I think that is at the heart of growth
Hmm.
vector investing, where you don't just chase the growth, but also keep the valuations, discipline intact, and
Absolutely.
allocate capital that
And
ways.
especially the scientific investing
Right.
framework, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think
Where
the one more element, and we always talk about this, that even in while you are following a scientific investing approach, you are allocating to growth vectors, you still need to allocate to multiple growth factors.
absolutely.
No matter, even when railway as a growth factor was attractively, very very attractively priced, Even then we used to say that okay, you have to diversify to
Absolutely.
multiple growth factors. Now it is even more stronger,
Incentive
required
to
required to do that.
absolutely.
And we have talked about how you can have a kind of a well structured asset allocation uh, plans in other videos where we talk about multiple allocations to core as well as multiple growth factor. And this is just to kind of re-emphasize the need of that, and maintain the valuation discipline and the growth outlook both at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
So with that, I think we can close this discussion. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us. So always keep in mind that investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing. And also that registration granted by SEBI, membership of BASL, and certification from NISM in no way guarantee performance of the intermediary or provide any assurance of returns to investors.